If you've spent any time on the true crime side of the internet, you already know the video,
Oh, absolutely. Everyone knows it.
right? You know the grainy security footage, you know the haunting, fluid hand gestures she makes in the doorway,
Yeah.
and you definitely know the ghost stories and the grand supernatural conspiracy theories that followed.
Millions of people watch that 2.5-minute clip.
Exactly. And almost everyone who saw it walked away, convinced they had just witnessed something sinister. But today, we're asking you to forget the mythology.
Because the real story behind that video is actually much more profound and far more tragic than any of those internet rabbit holes suggest.
It really is. Today, we're focusing on the 2013 death of 21-year-old Canadian student Elisa Lam at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles.
And this case serves as a masterclass in how an isolated piece of media can just be completely divorced from physical and medical reality.
Especially when viewed through the lens of internet sleuthing. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the physical environment where it all took place.
Yeah, the setting is undeniably a massive character in how this story was perceived, which is why we need to address it immediately.
So, Elisa Lam was staying at the Cecil Hotel.
Right, a massive complex built in the 1920s located at 640 South Main Street.
Right in the heart of LA's Skid Row.
And at the time, it had been partially rebranded as Stay on Main to attract younger, budget-conscious travelers.
But it carries a notoriously dark reputation. I mean, since 1924, it has essentially been dubbed Hotel Death.
Yeah, the history is incredibly dark.
Just to give you a sense of the scale, a former hotel manager stated that during her tenure alone, there were around 80 deaths on the premises.
80 deaths in 10 years.
Yeah. It had been the temporary home to the Night Stalker, serial killer Richard Ramirez.
Who would allegedly return to the hotel covered in blood.
Right. It also housed the Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger. So, a lot of dark history.
And we need to put a massive asterisk on all of that history right now.
Go ahead.
This grim background is only relevant to our discussion because it primed the public psychology.
That makes sense.
When Elisa Lam vanished, the internet immediately viewed her disappearance through a pre-existing filter of true crime and the supernatural.
Because of the hotel's reputation.
Exactly. That dark history dragged the entire narrative completely off track. It prompted people to look for monsters instead of looking at the medical reality of a vulnerable young woman.
Let's ground this in the actual timeline. Elisa checks in on January 26, 2013. On January 31st, she vanishes.
Right.
She was supposed to check out the next day, February 1st, but she never did. Her family reports her missing. The police search the hotel, and they do search the roof, but they find nothing.
They miss her entirely on that initial sweep.
Yeah. We then jump forward almost 3 weeks to February 19th. Hotel guests start complaining to the front desk about low water pressure,
And more alarmingly, a strange taste and smell coming from the tap water.
which prompts management to act.
Right. A maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez is dispatched to investigate the water supply.
His account is fascinating.
It really is. His exact path that day is heavily documented in the investigative files, and it establishes the physical reality of the scene.
Because it wasn't easy to get up there.
Not at all. First, Lopez takes the elevator up to the 15th floor. From there, he has to take a specific staircase up to the roof.
Right.
Before he can even step outside, he has to physically turn off the rooftop alarm. He noted for the record that this alarm was functioning perfectly and had not been tripped at any point during Lam's stay.
Wow. So once he is on the roof, it isn't just a simple stroll over to a water barrel.
No, he has to climb up onto a raised platform where 4 separate 1,000-gallon water tanks are located.
And these are huge industrial tanks.
Massive. Then he has to scale another ladder just to reach the top of the main water tank. It is a deliberate trek.
It is not somewhere a person simply wanders into by accident.
Exactly. When he finally reaches the top of that main tank, he finds that the heavy metal hatch is already open.
The hatch was open.
Yes. Looking inside, he sees an Asian woman lying face up in the water. The tank is about half to 3/4 full, which puts her body approximately 12 inches from the very top.
And that discovery instantly reignited the media frenzy.
Oh, it exploded.
Largely because of the piece of evidence the LAPD had released just days prior, this CCTV elevator footage.
Which everyone has an opinion on.
Right. But instead of falling into the trap of analyzing her every glance like an armchair detective, let's look at what happened when modern science finally analyzed this video.
This is where the narrative completely shifts.
Because researchers recently applied AI motion science to this decade-old footage, effectively dismantling the spooky mythology piece by piece.
What's fascinating here is how humans are inherently terrible at a psychological concept called thin slicing.
Thin slicing.
Yeah. Thin slicing is an evolutionary shortcut where our brains draw sweeping, massive conclusions from very brief, entirely contextless clips of behavior.
So we fill in the blanks.
Exactly. When we see something ambiguous, human nature forces us to project our own fears and narratives onto it to make sense of it. But artificial intelligence does not do that.
Right. It doesn't care about the ghosts.
It measures objective physical realities. It looks at center of gravity, posture, gaze orientation, and joint mapping.
So the first thing the AI researchers tackled was temporal reconstruction. They looked at the timing and the frame rate of the video.
Which is crucial.
Because the footage the public saw always felt slightly unnatural, almost dreamlike. The AI analysis revealed that the originally released video was likely altered, specifically slowed down in certain parts.
When we talk about this alteration, we're looking at something called export artifacts.
What are those?
These are basically digital hiccups that happen when a security system compresses a video file to save space or when it is exported for public release.
Okay.
The system tries to fill in missing visual gaps, which artificially slows down the subject's movements. When you slow down human movement, every single action is amplified.
So a normal pause looks suspicious.
Exactly. Normal pauses feel uncomfortably long. Quick glances look like calculated, lingering stares.
But when the AI corrects the frame rate to real time, the entire tone of the video shifts. Her movements stop looking like a slow-motion horror film.
Right.
Instead, they look exactly like a real person, experiencing a rapid, severe spike of anxiety and confusion.
And the AI simulation also paired its behavioral analysis with the specific mechanical system modeling of elevators from that era.
Which solves the biggest mystery for a lot of people.
Why the door stayed open.
Yes. For years, the internet swore a ghost or a stalker out of frame was holding the door.
But the reality is just standard mechanical programming. When she first walked into that elevator, she didn't just press the button for her floor,
She rapidly pressed a whole column of buttons.
including the door hold button.
Oh, wow.
In many commercial elevators built in the 90s and 2000s, mashing that specific combination of buttons triggers a standard mechanical sensor delay.
So the door stayed open simply because the machine's programming told it to pause when receiving that specific chaotic input.
Exactly. It was just the elevator doing what it was built to do.
Then we have the hand gestures. This is the detail that convinced people she was playing the Korean elevator game to reach an alternate dimension, or that she was casting a spell.
Yeah, that's where the AI really comes in. Using deep learning pose estimation, the AI system maps every visible joint on her body.
It gets incredibly granular.
Very. It calculates the exact angle of elbow flexion, wrist orientation, and shoulder elevation.
The system then compares her specific, mapped movements to thousands of hours of clinical behavioral data sets. It knows what a human body looks like when it is reacting to a physical threat.
Right. If there were a stalker in the hallway, her center of gravity would shift back, her arms would raise defensively, her gaze would lock onto the target.
But that's not what she's doing.
No. The AI does not classify her movements as a defensive reaction to an unseen external threat. It classifies them as self-stimulatory or stress regulation behavior.
Meaning what exactly?
These are physical manifestations of an internal overload. These specific, fluid, almost rhythmic movements dramatically increase in individuals experiencing cognitive overload, severe anxiety spikes, or profound perceptual disorientation.
So she is trying to physically self-regulate while navigating a massive internal mental crisis.
That is exactly what the data shows.
Which brings us to the hardest, most objective evidence we have in this stack of sources, the official Los Angeles County Coroner's Report.
And these are tough to read.
They are. We're looking at the files overseen by Associate Deputy Medical Examiner Dr. Jason Tovar and Senior Deputy Medical Examiner Yulai Wang.
The autopsy details are clinical and difficult to discuss, but they are essential for establishing the truth and cutting through the internet noise.
So the body was found in a state of moderate decomposition, which is medically expected given she was in the water for nearly 3 weeks.
The anatomic summary notes skin slippage, marbling, and a green discoloration of the abdomen.
But the single most critical finding across the entire multi-page report is the absolute lack of trauma.
That's the key. There is zero evidence of external or internal trauma.
There were no fractures, no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, and no defensive injuries that would indicate a struggle.
They specifically noted that there was no trauma to the neck organs. The hyoid bone was completely intact, ruling out strangulation.
And because there was absolutely zero physical evidence of foul play or a physical altercation, the medical examiners ultimately classified the cause of death as accidental drowning.
That was their official conclusion.
Wait, accidental drowning. I had to push back on that for a second because if I'm a listener looking at the case file, the immediate red flag is the clothing.
The clothing anomaly.
Right. The report states she was found completely naked. How does a medical examiner look at a naked body in a water tank and confidently say accident?
It sounds counterintuitive.
For anyone with a passing interest in true crime, a naked body almost automatically implies a crime took place.
It is a completely understandable assumption to make. However, in forensic medicine, this is a heavily documented phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing.
Paradoxical undressing.
Yes, it occurs frequently in cases involving drowning or severe hypothermia. As the body goes into profound shock from the freezing water, the blood vessels constrict to keep the core warm.
Okay.
But eventually, the muscles powering that constriction fail, and the blood vessels violently dilate. This rushes warm blood to the skin, creating a severe burning sensation that tricks the brain into thinking the body is overheating.
Wow.
Yeah, causing the victim to strip off their clothes in a panic.
Furthermore, we have to look at the specific clothes she was wearing, which were found at the bottom of the tank covered in a sand-like particulate.
Right, they were still in the tank.
The report meticulously catalogs a pair of men's medium black shorts, a green shirt with a deer logo, underwear, black polka dot sandals, and a red American Apparel zippered sweatshirt.
Try swimming in that.
Exactly. The physical weight of soaking wet clothes, especially a heavy red sweatshirt and sandals, makes treading water nearly impossible.
It is highly probable, combining the hypothermia response with sheer exhaustion, that she removed them simply to stay afloat as fatigue set in.
The physical scene tells us how she died, but the toxicology report and her own digital footprint tell us why she was on that roof in the first place.
The toxicology screen was incredibly comprehensive. They tested both her heart blood and liver tissue.
And the results were completely negative for any illicit drugs or alcohol.
None. What they did find, however, were traces of her prescribed psychiatric medications.
Her sister had already confirmed to investigators that Elisa had a documented history of depression and bipolar disorder.
All right. And the lab found 3 specific medications in her system: bupropion, venlafaxine, and lamotrigine.
But the critical detail here isn't just the presence of the drugs.
No, it's the concentration. The
Yeah.
medications were found at incredibly low levels.
How low?
From a pharmacological standpoint, the levels were so low that Dr. Tovar explicitly concluded she was undertaking her medication.
And we know this wasn't just an educated guess by the lab. When the police searched her hotel room, they found her prescription pill bottles.
Right. By cross-referencing the dates, the prescriptions were filled with the exact number of pills remaining in the bottles. The math just didn't add up.
The pill count physically proved she was skipping multiple daily doses.
The pharmacokinetic reality of abruptly stopping a regimen of venlafaxine and lamotrigine is severe.
It's not just feeling a little down.
No, it doesn't just return a patient to their baseline bipolar state. It can trigger a violent rebound effect, plunging the brain into a severe manic or acute psychotic episode.
Complete with paranoia and auditory or visual hallucinations.
Exactly.
And we don't even have to guess if that was happening because we have her own words.
Yes, the Tumblr blog.
Elisa was an avid user of Tumblr. Her blog, under the handle Nouvelle Nouveau, served as a real-time public diary of her mental state.
And in the weeks leading up to her trip, her posts heavily referenced her profound struggles with bipolar disorder.
She talked about her feelings of inadequacy and her intense frustration with the side effects of her medications.
If we trace her behavior in the days leading up to her disappearance, it perfectly aligns with the onset of a severe mental health crisis.
This wasn't just a brief moment of acting strangely in an elevator. While in Los Angeles, she attended a live television show taping and was actually escorted out by security.
Yeah, she had written a rambling, incoherent letter and aggressively demanded it be given to the host of the show.
That erratic pattern escalated when she checked into the Cecil Hotel. She originally booked a shared dorm-style room.
But hotel management was forced to move her to a private room after her roommates complained.
She was leaving bizarre notes on their beds that simply said, "Get out and go home." She was physically locking them out of the room and demanding they provide a secret password before she would open the door.
She was also witness in the hotel lobby shouting, "I'm crazy, but so is LA."
Which is just so sad when you see the context.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, every single piece of physical, medical, and behavioral evidence points strictly in one direction.
Right.
We are looking at a young woman suffering from a severe psychotic episode brought on by the sudden cessation of her bipolar medication.
This altered state of reality entirely explains the paranoia captured in the elevator footage.
It explains the flight response that led her to seek the highest ground, climbing up the stairs, bypassing the alarm, getting onto the roof, and ultimately, tragically, climbing into the water tank to hide from a perceived terrifying threat.
The scientific and behavioral evidence is overwhelming, but the internet didn't want a medical explanation.
They really didn't. They wanted a mystery.
And unfortunately, the universe provided some incredibly bizarre coincidences that just poured gasoline on the conspiracy fire.
This is why sticking to the facts is so crucial, because the distractions were genuinely uncanny.
The synchronicities in this case are staggering. It is almost understandable why people who engage in thin slicing got so distracted.
Right, let's look at those distractions.
Let's talk about the tuberculosis outbreak.
Yeah.
Shortly after her body was found in the water tank, there's a localized TB outbreak right there in LA's Skid Row.
The timing was incredible.
The medical teams sent in to manage the crisis used a standard diagnostic test. The literal medical name of that test, the Lam ELISA test.
The Elisa Lam.
You hear that, and it sounds like a glitch in the matrix.
It is a striking coincidence, but it has a completely mundane scientific explanation.
Well, what is it?
ELISA stands for enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, and Lam refers to a lipoarabinomannan antigen. It is a standard medical test that existed long before she ever set foot in Los Angeles.
But in the echo chamber of the internet, that acronym became definitive proof of a massive government bioweapon conspiracy.
People ran wild with it.
And then there was the cultural connection. 2005, a horror film called Dark Water was released.
Oh, this one really fueled the fire.
The plot revolves around a mother and daughter moving into a creepy building. Dark, foul-tasting water starts leaking from the ceiling.
Just like the hotel guests complained about.
Exactly. The mother eventually goes up to the roof, opens the water tank, and finds the body of a missing girl floating inside. To make it even stranger, the name of the daughter in the movie is Cecilia.
Like the Cecil Hotel.
Yes.
These coincidences feel like the plot of a thriller. But we have to emphasize why indulging in these cinematic fantasies and abandoning the hard facts carries a devastating human cost.
It's not a harmless game.
Exactly. There is a real-world harm that occurs when thousands of people online refuse to accept a mundane tragedy and decide to play detective.
A perfect heartbreaking example of that harm is the story of Pablo Vergara.
Right. Pablo was a Mexican death metal musician who performed under the stage name Morbid.
Online sleuths, desperate to find a villain for their horror movie narrative, scoured the internet and found a video Pablo had posted of himself staying at the Cecil Hotel.
They analyzed his dark, aggressive lyrics and his gothic aesthetic. Based purely on that, the internet mob collectively decided he was Elisa Lam's murderer.
They completely destroyed his life. They relentlessly cyberbullied him across every platform, sent him thousands of death threats, and successfully petitioned to get his social media and professional accounts shut down.
He was globally branded a killer.
The terrible irony of this witch hunt. He had stayed at the Cecil Hotel a full year before Elisa Lam was even there.
A whole year earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
During the exact time of her death, he was physically in Mexico recording an album.
He had absolute undeniable proof of his innocence, but the internet mob didn't care about his alibi. They only cared about their narrative.
The harassment was so severe and so unrelenting that Pablo Vergara suffered a massive mental breakdown and attempted suicide.
It's just devastating. He survived, but his life and career were irreparably damaged by thousands of strangers who genuinely thought they were helping solve a crime.
So what does this all mean? For you listening, this deep dive is a profound lesson in how our craving for a sensational narrative can completely blind us to the simple, heartbreaking truth.
We wanted a ghost story. We wanted a shadowy stalker or an evil villain.
But the truth was, just a young woman, far from home, suffering from a severe, uncontrollable mental health crisis. She was someone's daughter, someone's sister, who desperately needed clinical help.
But instead, she became a piece of global internet entertainment.
This raises an important question.
Not just about how we consume true crime, but about the future of how we understand history itself. We've just seen how artificial intelligence can look at a piece of grainy, decade-old footage and objectively measure cognitive overload, completely bypassing the human bias that fueled years of ghost stories.
It leaves you wondering about the future of this technology. If AI can retroactively solve the behavioral mystery of Elisa Lam, objectively measuring the physical reality of a mental health crisis without getting distracted by the horror movie coincidences.
What other historical mysteries, captured on grainy film, are just waiting for a machine to look at them without human bias?